The Fort Worth Missing Trio. A chilling disappearance. On December 23, 1974, the lives of three young girls and their families in Fort Worth, Texas, were irrevocably changed by an incident that remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in the state's history. 17-year-old Mary Rachel Trulicka, 14-year-old Lisa Renee Wilson, and 9-year-old Julie Ann Mosley set out for what should have been a typical Christmas shopping trip at the Seminary South Shopping Center, but instead, they vanished without a trace. Rachel, often called by her middle name, was the oldest of the trio. At 17, she was a high school student at Southwest High School and had been married to her husband, Tommy Trulicka, for about 6 months. Despite her young age, Rachel was already adjusting to married life, juggling her responsibilities as a student and a wife. On that December morning, she had planned to pick up some Christmas gifts and run a few errands, a task made easier with the car she drove, a 1972 Oldsmobile 98. Renee Wilson, known to her friends and family by her middle name, was just 14 years old. A lively teenager, Renee was excited about an upcoming Christmas party with her new boyfriend, who had just given her a promise ring that morning. She was eager to return home by 4:00 p.m. to have enough time to get ready for the party, adding a sense of urgency to the girls' shopping trip. The youngest of the three, Julie Ann Mosley, was only 9 years old. She decided to join the older girls on their shopping trip at the last minute. Julie, who didn't want to spend the day alone, pleaded with her mother, Rayanne Mosley, for permission to tag along. Despite initial reluctance, Rayanne eventually agreed, instructing Julie to be home by 6:00 p.m. Julie's presence on this trip was spontaneous, and this decision would become part of the haunting mystery that followed. The girls first visited a local surplus store to pick up some layaway items before heading to the Seminary South Shopping Center. Witnesses later confirmed seeing them at the mall, browsing through the stores, and possibly even chatting with acquaintances. The day progressed like any other, with the girls checking off their shopping lists as they moved through the bustling mall. However, when the girls didn't return home by the expected time, their families became increasingly worried. By 6:00 p.m., when the girls were still missing, their families decided to take matters into their own hands. They headed to the mall, only to find Rachel's Oldsmobile parked in the Sears upper-level parking lot. Inside the car, they discovered the Christmas presents the girls had purchased, neatly placed as if the girls had returned to the car before vanishing. The eerie stillness of the scene suggested that whatever had happened to them occurred after they had completed their shopping. The family spent the night in the mall parking lot, waiting anxiously for their daughters to return, but they never did. The search and bizarre clues. As panic set in, the Fort Worth Police Department, FWPD, was notified, and the case was quickly handed over to the Youth Division of the Missing Persons Bureau. However, from the outset, the authorities leaned towards the theory that the girls had run away, a hypothesis that would soon be questioned as more details emerged. The day after their disappearance, a strange and unsettling clue arrived at the Trulicka household, a letter supposedly written by Rachel. The letter, addressed to Thomas A. Trulicka, a formal version of the name Rachel would never use for her husband, read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears' upper lot. Love, Rachel." The message was cryptic, with a tone that didn't match Rachel's typical way of speaking. The envelope was addressed in pencil, while the letter itself was written in ink on a sheet of paper that was wider than the envelope. The letter raised more questions than it answered. Why would Rachel leave such a note, and why would she address her husband in such a formal manner? Even more puzzling was the postmark on the envelope, which was unclear but seemed to originate from a location close to Fort Worth. Despite the letter, the girls' families were convinced that something far more sinister had happened. They firmly believed that the note was either coerced or written by someone else entirely. The idea that Rachel, Renee, and Julie Ann had run away seemed implausible, especially given the circumstances. Renee's excitement about her Christmas party, Julie's young age and lack of money, and Rachel's settled life with her husband. The families refused to accept the runaway theory and took it upon themselves to launch a massive search effort. They distributed thousands of missing person flyers, contacted newspapers across the country, and followed up on every lead, no matter how small. Tips began pouring in, and witnesses started coming forward. One young man claimed he had seen the girls at the mall, chatting with another person just before they disappeared. His testimony added a new layer of intrigue. Could this person have been involved in their disappearance? As the investigation dragged on, the families became increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress. In a desperate attempt to uncover the truth, they hired a private investigator named John Swain. Swain's investigation led to several promising leads, including a suspect who had been making obscene phone calls to young women in the area, including Rachel. This man had once lived near Rachel's parents and had moved away shortly before she got married. However, despite these leads, nothing concrete ever came of Swain's efforts. In April 1975, Swain organized a search in Port Lavaca, Texas, after receiving a tip that the girls had been killed and their bodies hidden under local bridges. 100 volunteers scoured the area, but once again, no trace of the missing girls was found. The investigation continued to hit dead ends, with every promising lead turning into another frustrating roadblock. Even when skeletal remains were discovered in Brazoria County in 1976, hopes were dashed when they were identified as belonging to a teenage boy and 2 other females who were not the missing girls. Adding to the tragedy, Swain himself met a mysterious end in 1979, dying from a drug overdose that was ruled a suicide. Before his death, he ordered all his files on the case to be destroyed, leaving the families with even fewer answers and more questions about what had really happened to their daughters. Theories, witnesses, and lingering questions. Over the decades, numerous theories have surfaced, each offering a different explanation for the girls' disappearance. Some suggest that the girls may have left the mall with someone they trusted, while others believe they were abducted by strangers. In January 2001, the case was reopened and assigned to homicide detective Tom Bocher, who echoed the theory that the girls likely left with someone they knew. However, despite his belief that more than one person was involved, no new evidence emerged to support this claim. In 2018, 2 cars were pulled from Benbrook Lake in an attempt to find connections to the case, but once again, the investigation yielded no results. The lake search was just another in a long line of efforts that seemed to go nowhere, deepening the despair felt by the families and the Fort Worth community. Investigators have come through Texas, exploring hundreds of back roads, creek beds, and rural areas, but all searches have ended the same way, without answers. Adding to the mystery are the potential witnesses who came forward years after the disappearance. One store clerk claimed that she had seen 3 girls being forced into a yellow pickup truck near Buddy's grocery store at the mall. The truck was described as having lights on top, a detail that could have been significant had the witness been located. However, police were never able to track down this witness to verify the story. In 1981, another man claimed he had seen a man forcing a girl into a van in the mall parking lot on the day of the disappearance. The man in the van reportedly told him it was a family dispute and advised him to stay out of it. This lead, too, failed to produce any further evidence or information that could help solve the case. In April 2001, Bill Hutchins, a former Fort Worth police officer and security guard at the Seminary South Sears outlet, came forward with another potential sighting. He claimed he had seen the 3 girls with a security guard on the night they disappeared. While this account added yet another layer to the mystery, it ultimately did not lead to any breakthroughs in the case. Today, the disappearance of the Fort Worth missing trio remains an open wound for the families and an enduring enigma for those who continue to seek answers. Despite the passage of time, the hope for resolution persists. The case has never been officially closed, and the search for answers continues, driven by the determination of the families and the memories of 3 young girls whose lives were tragically cut short. The Fort Worth missing trio may be gone, but they are not forgotten,